This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, Rabbi Sai. So we're going to have a special shiur today on Inyane Chanukah. I want to thank Yossi Badner for suggesting that we do a Lomdus sugya in the Yerech L'Mayadim. So this is coming. We're coming. So if you want to look it up, it's Siman Tes. Okay, I'm not making this up. I want to thank my good friend Harav Agoin, Rav Moshe Gruen, who was Mechaber the Yerech L'Mayadim. So it's very beautifully written. Okay, so let's begin as follows. Masechta Shabbos Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. Zog the Heilige Gemara. Tan Rabbanan. Ner Chanukah Mitzvah Lanicha Al Pesach Beis Ami B'chutz. Ner Chanukah, it's a mitzvah to place it on the door of your house on the outside. So now the question is, what if you live in upstairs? If you live upstairs, Manicha B'chalein Esmuch L'Shusarami, put in the window. Ubishas hasakana. But what about when it's dangerous? Interesting, by the way. Rashi says, "What's shas hasakana?" The Persians had a law that on their holiday they would not allow people to light candles, only indoors. Okay, that's what happened. So, a time of a sakana when it was dangerous to light outside, manicha al shulchanai udiyai, v'dayai. You put it on your table and fartig. It's good enough. Omar Rava. You need another candle to use the light. In other words, known as the Shamash. The Ika Medura, and if there's a bonfire, loy tzarach. Then you don't need another candle because you have the bonfire. If you're an Adam Chashuv who doesn't use a bonfire, afagav the Ika Medura, tzarach ner acheres. This is the Gemara of Shamash. Amar Rava, tzarach ner acheres l'shtamesh la'ira. You need another ner to use the light. But if you have a madura, you have a fire in the house, you don't need a ner acheres. Fine. So far, so good. Yeah? What's going on? Yeah? So, I'm sorry, can I get a Mishnah Berurah Chelek Vav? Mishnah Berurah Chelek Vav. So, I believe the Mechaber says, in Siman Taf Reish Ayin Aleph, Sif Hey, the Mechaber says like this. Taf Reish Ayin Aleph, Sif Hey, Zog the Mechaber, the mitzvahs ner Chanukah, Tzarech lahadlik, the Pesach Beis Ami Bachutz. V'imdar ba'aliyah, manichai b'chaloinoi. V'im hayadar ba'aliyah she'en loy Pesach, paso shazar manich b'chaloin. Uv'shas ha'sakana she'en rashel kama mitzvah nichal shon v'der. V'tzorech ner acher shamash ta'ira. You need another candle, as the Gemara said, exactly, word for word. The Lashon L'Mechaber is v'tzarech. What does v'tzarech mean? You need to, you must, you have to. Fine. That's Taf Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Hey. Comes the Mechaber in Taf Reish Ayin Gimel Sif Aleph. Says Mechaber, v'noi hagim lahadlik ner noisef. The minhag is to light another candle. Kadesh mishtamash or, so that if you come to use a light, yela or hanoisaf, it will be to the added light. So the obvious question is the mamish b'fir shastira. Mechaber in Siman Taf Reish Ayin Aleph says that you have to light a shamash, as the Gemara says. You're required to. And the Mechaber in Siman Taf Reish Ayin Gimel Sif Aleph says v'noi hagim. The minhag is the most important lack of education in this generation is people b'chalal have no shaykhis. What's a minhag? And what you have to do, and what's the drabanan, and what's the deraisa. It's mamish mahapech haka'ara. The minhag becomes kodesh kadashim. It's mamish deraisa ad mesiras nefesh. And in yoni deraisa, like lashon hara, stealing, it's a minhag. It's not my minhag. My father did it. I do it. Somebody once told me, I talk by that. It's my minhag. Seriously, he told me with a straight face. My minhag is what my father talked by that. That's what he told me. So people, Rabbi Vadia says, minhag is oisias gehenim. All these minhagim get you to a very uncomfortable place. So people have to know, what's a chiv d'oraisa, what's a chiv d'rabanan, what's a minhag. You have to know, there are different kinds of minhagim. I have a minhag, my tata wore slippers at the table. So, okay, shkoyach, good for him. I don't know. What's that got to do with you? Just because your father does something doesn't make it a minhag. B'chalal, no shaykhs to minhag. Minhag has nothing to do with what your father does. Minhag is what they did in the city where your family came from. Nothing to do with what your father happened to have done. My father at the table, after his gefilte fish, okay, very nice. Okay. I don't need to know all of his digestive issues that now have nothing to do with you. Minhag is a halacha. what was done in your father's city. If your father grew up in Flatbush, that means you have to know what your grandfather did. If you don't know, then there's a Shulchan Aruch. That's it. Anyway.
Can't have him
Okay.
from Flatbush?
What?
Can't have him
No, there's no minhagim from him.
Right, something to drink in between the fish and the...
There's no minhag. It's a Shulchan Aruch. You have to know what the Shulchan Aruch says. Avada.
Have something in
Yeah, the Shulchan Aruch, there's a siman in Shulchan Aruch that between fish and meat, you have to wash your hands. You have to wash your hands. So we're not knowing that, but at the very least, the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Magen Avraham, you eat something and you drink something. It has nothing to do with whether your father did it or not. Either you do follow the halacha or you don't follow the halacha. It's not a... Because the Mishnah Berurah says you don't really have to do it. Whether your father does it or not does not make that incumbent upon you. Okay, so... but this has nothing to do with anything. But one thing it does is the Mechaber says in Tafresh Ayin Aleph that a Shamash is Chiyuv, B'tzarach, and Tafresh Ayin Gimel says V'noyagin. So now let's Klar Chakira. Why do you have to know how to read the Gemara. The Gemara says in Shabbos Chaf Alef Beis that we just read, Amarava Tzarach Ner Acheres L'Shtamish L'Oira. When does that apply? Because if you read the Gemara carefully, the Gemara says, Nitzas Ner Chanukah, it's supposed to put it outside. If you live in an attic, you put it by the window. And Rishazon, you put it on your table. Amar Rava, you need another candle. Why does Rava Dafka say the din of Shamish after, B'shas HaSakana, then you could light it on your table? Mashmit Eitzel Har Sinai. There should be two dots, a new sugya, nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Amar Rava, Tzarach Ner Acheres L'Shtamish L'Oira. Why does Rava, tail the Indian that B'shas HaSakana Manich Al Shulchan V'diyai? Is it because that, let's assume, what's the reason for a Shamish? Probably, this is also a major mistake. What's the reason for a Shamish? People think, so you need something, you can't light, Miner L'Ner, so you need something to light it. Shkayach. So then light it and then blow it out. What's the reason for a Shamish? People make such a big deal about the Shamish. What do you need a Shamish for? Because since Asur L'Shtamish L'Oira, you know how to use the Ner Chanukah, you know how to read by it, you can't, I don't know, Bisman is that what are people going to use the candle? I can't see my phone, so you're going to take it up to the candle to see. You're not being Mishtamesh L'Oira. What? Can't warm your hands. You can't get Hana from their Chanukah. By the way, why? The Ran says, very beautiful reason, that they paralleled the lighting of the menorah in your house after the Beis HaMikdash. And in the Beis HaMikdash there was an Isser Me'ilah. So they gave the menorah, din of menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, a very beautiful reason. But since it's also a Shtamish L'Oira, but what if a person might forget and he might come to read, he might come to learn K'tzais HaChoshen by the Ner Chanukah, so therefore you light another candle. So even if you do learn by the Ner, it's to the Ner Noisaf, but it's not to the Neros Chanukah, right? So even though you say, what do you mean, there are 8 Neros Chanukah and there's one Shamish, yeah, but that one candle could technically provide enough light. So if I forget and I'm a Nene, I'm being Nene La'ar HaNer. That's the Pashut reason for the Shamish. We're going to revisit that soon. Okay? So if that's the case, maybe Rava only set his din that you need another candle when you're lighting on your table. Because when you're lighting on your table, it's in an area where you're spending a lot of time. You're in the kitchen anyway, you're in the dinette anyway, so you might come to use the Neros Chanukah. Masha'in Kain, in the olden days, in Amalaga Zeitin, so they lit outside. There's no chash you might come to use the Neros, because who hangs that outside? But now, the B'shas HaSakana, Manich Al Shulchan Diyai, Amarava Tzarach Ner Acheres L'Shtamish L'Oira. Or do we say, no, you always need a Shamish, even when you light outside? That's the Chakira. The flow, the Hemshech HaGemara is mashma, that perhaps you could say Rava is only talking about when you light indoors. Okay. Let's see. So what would you say? The Ran was just talking about, I just brought in what the reason it's also Shtamish L'Oira. So I want to read to you the words of the Rambam. The Rambam, Perek Daled, Halacha Ches. You tell me what the Rambam is mashma. Right. Oh, okay. According to Ran, it's also a Shtamish L'Oira, just like in the Beis HaMikdash. But the question is, when do you need a shamish? Is it only when you're lighting indoor?
Is a shamish a gather for specifically indoor, or is it at all times?
No.
That's the question.
Okay.
And Bisman is there that we have it by the windows. I consider al shulchana or outside.
Also a good point. It's not outside, but it's not at the table.
That's what I'm asking.
From the Gemara, it's mashma, I would say, Rav is dafka saying his din. B'shas hasakana, that it's on your table, then you need a shamash. But when we were lighting upstairs by the window, Rav didn't say the din. So I would say it's like outside. Okay? So listen to the Rambam. Ner Chanukah mitzonicha pesach b'esmin v'chutz. Fine. B'tefach hasamach le'pesach al smoil hanechnas kedei she'mezuzah b'yamin, ner Chanukah mismal. V'im ha'yadar ba'aliyah, manicha b'chalain. Fine. Ner Chanukah shenicha l'mala me'esrim is pasul, right? There are three things that can't be l'mala me'esrim. B'mei ha'sakana, maniach adam ner Chanukah b'tech beisai. This is a new halacha ches. V'tzarech liyais b'soich habayis ner acher lehishtamesh l'oiroi. It's not. You don't even need to a diuk in the Rambam. The Rambam says black and white, right? That v'tzarech liyais b'soich habayis ner acher lehishtamesh l'oiroi. No, b'soich habayis.
How do you know he's
Yeah, right.
But how do you know he's learning that like he's learning the Gemara that way? Maybe he's learning it like in Shur over here. But that's what the
Again, what does Mishnah Berurah say?
that you should be nice if in there.
Again, there are two. The Shiur and the Mechaber. Mechaber says one place. Sarach. The Mechaber says other.
That it's a minhag. Maybe the Rambam's going along those lines. Maybe they learns the Gemara.
So 1 second. The Rambam clearly is learning the Gemara that the din of Rava of a tzarech l'haisif is only b'seich habayis.
Maybe it's this other reasoning, which is what the Mechaber's giving.
Mechaber doesn't give any reason.
But he doesn't say where he got that.
The Rambam says one thing. The Rambam says you need to have it in a shamash, and he says it needs to be in the house. That's mashma. Not in the house. You don't need to have a shamash. Right? It's the dik. Even Dani agrees. Okay?
The problem is outside doesn't blow out.
So you put it in a glass box. I mean,
The problem that it's not lit in a way that it would be able to.
you're right. If it's lit in that way, it's not good. But you put it in a box that it doesn't go out.
Putting it in the box is preventing it, so that it's not really.
That's okay.
No, he juxtaposed it.
Okay, good, fine. Also, in the Meiri says the Ferish, Lo amru tzarech ela al shulchanai, avakol shemunacha samach lepesach beisai ein tzarech. So Meiri says the Ferish, you don't need a shamash outside. And the Maimar Mordechai says clearly that the Yerach l'mayadim quotes, Lo hizhiru rak al shulchanai, because you're going to come to use the light. So far so good. Yeah, right, fine. Comes the Bir Halacha. Bir Halacha and Siman Taf Reish Ayin Aleph. You're with me? V'tzarech. V'nira, says Bir Halacha, Dafka b'manicha al shulchanai, aval kol shemanicha samach lapesach, ein tzarech l'ner acheres. Afal pi she'omei lo l'sham, ho ve'eino bel l'sham she'or la'izah tashmit. So Bir Halacha is explaining the Rambam and the Meiri that what's the svara that you only need a shamish when it's al shulchanai and you don't need a shamish outside? Like we said, that if it's al shulchanai, you're going to come to use it. It's right in your house. We're afraid you may come to use it. But if it's outside, you're not hanging around there. We're not afraid you're going to come to use it. But says the Bir Halacha, Achein minag ha'olam v'chein minag Rabbi Seinu. Now the Bir Halacha is quoting a Meiri. The minhag of the world, the minhag of Rabbeim, the bechol ner Chanukah hamudlekes b'seich habayis, tzarech ner acheres, afilu lo hayot tzarech l'tashmish. The minhag ha'olam and the minhag of Rabbeim is that we light a shamish even b'teich habayis, even if you don't need it. Why? We'll see. V'chein ani noyeg l'maisa.
Even not b'shas sakana.
Even not b'shas sakana.
Even inside, it's mashma that outside would also be.
Meaning, nowadays we don't light outside, but it's not only b'shas sakana, but even if you light it anywhere, you need to. The minhag is to light it. Why? Because that's the minhag.
What's preferred?
That even again, let me just again. Davka b'manicha al shulchanai. Again, according to the Rambam, the ikar din of Shamash is when you're lighting it indoors. However, the Halacha brings down the minhag ha'olam is to light a Shamash always. Okay, so if that's the case, there's a pashut answer to the stira. And how's that? Tafresh Ayin Aleph is talking about the hierarchy of lighting Ner Chanukah. You're supposed to do it outside. You can't do it outside. Do it by the window upstairs. You can't do that. B'shas hasakana, you put it on your table. Oh, you're putting it on the table? V'tzarech. Now the din of a shamish becomes a chiyuv. Why? Because you're doing it inside. Tafresh Ayin Gimel is talking about normal circumstances. Normal circumstances, you're lighting it wherever you need to light it. You're lighting it outside, right? As the din is. Therefore, it's only a minhag. Therefore, our shamash becomes only a minhag. Meaning, bottom line is, do you have to light a shamash b'zman hazeh? You don't have to, but it is a minhag, so you do have to. You do have to keep minhagim. You just have to be aware it's not a chiyuv, it's a minhag. That's.
So is it ikuv?
No, it's not ma'akev. Neither, by the way, neither was it in Rava. Rava is not saying it's ma'akev. Rava would never say if you don't have a shamash, you don't light. But in Rava, it was a chiyuv. Bisman hazeh, it's only a minhag. And that's the answer to the Machabers. That the chiyuv shamash was in Tafresh Ayin Aleph when you lit it inside, b'shas hasakana. But bisman hazeh, where you're lighting it, wherever you're lighting it, you're not lighting it on your table. You're lighting it either outside or by the window, near the outside, by your front window. So then the shamash is only v'noyagim.
So if you have only two lights, and it's the second night, is it better to light one and use the other one as a shamash, or to light two and use no shamash?
Light too.
If you have 5 minhag, you have to light each one with a shamash, or just one?
Unclear. No, nothing that we said bears on that question. The chayra you don't need a...
Why light two then?
According to the minhag, what would you...
Huh?
It's a hiddur to light the second night.
And a shabash is only a minhag.
So hiddur...
Hiddur mitzvah is more important than minhag. I'll ask you a question. We're not going to get into this. Maybe a different time we'll do a sugya. Let's say it's the second night, let's say it's the third night of Chanukah, and you only have 2 candles. Should you light 1? Or should you light 2? Like, does 2 do anything? It's more.
What is it?
It's the third night. Do you say the ikar is malim b'kodesh? I'm not being malim b'kodesh. Yesterday it was 2. I'm not being malim by lighting 2 today. Or is it ikar vart ein moridin? At least I won't be ein moridin. Mishnah Berurah says third night you only have 2. You light 1.
Should I use the second
Comes
one
with
as a
Chaim
shamash?
Kanievsky in the Shoin Halachas. You know what the Shoin Halachas is? It's like a kitzur of Mishnah Berurah. As far as I know, it's the only time Rav Chaim Kanievsky quotes Rav Shach. And he says, look in the Avi Ezri. Avi Ezri says, if you have third night of Chanukah, 2 candles, you light 2 candles. It's a big shiur. It's a big sugya. I'm not sure that's in the Yara. It's a very nice shiur. It's a very beautiful shiur.
Back in the day, they were knowledgeable what night.
I mean, you're confusing people.
They looked at the actual candles to know what night.
So they're gonna.
You know what night it is.
So you're gonna say it's gonna confuse people.
Now you won't get confused. I know tonight's the third night. I see 2 candles. Maybe 1 went out. Because also, what happens in the case when somebody lights candles and then some of them start going out? You should say at that point you should have to put the other one.
I don't think we're worried that people need to know what night it is.
And then what would be the logic behind the Mishnah Berurah for lighting 1 when you have 2?
Because the reason to go up is keneged the yamim. Okay. I'm not lighting keneged the yam because tonight is night 2.
Isn't there a hiddur?
No, what am I doing? What am I doing?
So the question is whether there's a hiddur in adding 1.
Right, or do you say just more light? The more the better.
There's more light, right. Or is it that it's representative of the night?
Here's the main chakir that we want to get into. Very important to know. What's the reason for a shamash? So the Mechaber and the Rambam is mashma. You light a shamash, you light a ner noisaf, because if, just in case, you'll come to use the light of the menorah, which is also l'shtamish l'oira, you won't be using the light of the menorah, you'll be using the shamash, right? You'll be nene from the shamash, right? The lashon of the Rambam is To be able to use. Now that's not 100% clear, but let's see, the Mechaber in Taf Reish Ayin Gimel, he says, Kedei she'im yishtamish la'oira yiyeh la'or hanoisaf shehu oisei shehud lak achrein. Okay, so that's the shita of the Rambam, basically, that the reason for the shamish is in case you come to use it, you will be using the ner noisaf. Fine. The Torah also says this lashon shemishtamish la'oira, it will be ner noisaf. Also the Rashba. Why? Where do we see in the Rashba? The Rashba paskins asur. Now there's Machlokes in the Gemara. Asur l'shtamish la'oira or mutar l'shtamish la'oira. The Rashba paskins asur l'shtamish la'oira. Says the Rashba, why am I paskening asur l'shtamish la'oira? Says the Rashba, because Rava the paskins that way. Where does Rava paskin that way? Because Rava, who says tzarich ner noisaf, is so that we don't use the ner. So we see Rava holds asur l'shtamish la'oira. That means the Rashba clearly holds the reason to have a ner noisaf is so that in case you're coming to use the ner, it will be la ner noisaf. However, Rashi, I wish you had it in front of you. I'm going to read to you the words, and you'll tell me what he says. Just try to imagine the words. Tzarech ner acheres de'iloi loy have a heker. Because if you don't light a ner noisaf, there is no heker. No heker to what?
Which light is which?
The reason we light the menorah is why? Persumei nisa. We want people to know we're lighting it to be mefarsim the nes. If we don't have a shamish, we don't know why people's lighting. Maybe people are making lighting to light up the room. Maybe people are lighting to have light. So when people see there's an added candle in a different position, that means that candle is for light. So what's going on over here?
Now the shamash has to be in a different position?
Yeah, it does. Based on this far, that has to be a hecker.
You're incorporating that so in your understanding of Rashi, so you're using Rashi to say that.
That would be between the two different shatim, whether or not it needs to be.
So I can't...
According to what we were saying, that it's only not to have the camp benefit, it would make a difference. Have a hecker, it would need to.
Yeah. No, I'm asking where Rashi got it from.
Says the Mechaber, V'yanichenu me'rochoi k'tzas mishar ner mitzvah. Why?
Rashi's reasoning.
So according to Rashi's reason, by the way, I just made up on the spot. I'm not sure if anybody says it. I'll be honest. I have to be honest with you. So now, right, the Mechaber says that you have to put it far away. So Dubi wants to say, it's an afkami between the Rambam and Rashi. Lefi the Rambam, that's also Shtamish La'ira, so it's there in case you're Mishtamish, it could be right there. Mashenkin, according to Rashi, it wants to be a hecker, so we need to know one was lit La'ar and the other is Shem Mitzvah. The Mishnah Berurah says a reason why it has to be far away, because we wanted people to know what night it is. That's Pasha. So that's then it's not an afkamina.
That goes back to the whole case of the 2 versus 3, and why Chaim would say that you use enough.
But that's only the chadchila we want to know what night it's. If you can't, maybe it's better to have. Yeah, it's not ma'akev. The haraya nera shubeisai. You only have to light one. Now the Shar Tzion says, no, even in the Rambam you have to light it away. Why? Shem yavei l'shamesh. What's the problem? Why do you need it according to the Rambam? So in case you come to use it. So it's better if it's far away. This way, if it's further away, you'll remind yourself only to use that one. So it comes out it's not necessarily nafkamina.
Maybe that's what...
Maybe at the end or the middle, whether if you're being mishtamish, how you're being mishtamish the candles.
Maybe that's what Rashi means when it says nicker.
That what?
Which light to use. Same reasoning.
No, Rashi's saying that otherwise it's not recognizable. Why do you need a shamish?
It's not recognizable.
Why do you need a shamish? The Eloi have a hecker. If you don't have a shamish,
you won't know the difference.
But why do you have to have a shamish to begin with? According to Rashi.
Same reason, shamish bar. Maybe not.
So Rashi would say you need an eracheres l'hishtamish l'oira. What's Rashi?
Going? That's the Gemara. That's the learning of the Gemara.
Otherwise, it's not a hecker. Rashi's going on the din that it has to be far away. But the Gemara doesn't even say it has to be far away. I just,
I understand that. But the way they learned the Gemara, the Mag Mishnah was learning the Gemara.
I don't know that they're learning the Gemara that way. They're just saying once we...
Mag Mishnah learns saying the Rambam was clear.
I don't know the Mag Mishnah. I only know what I tell you. I don't know the Mag Mishnah.
You should share it to me. He learns that in the Gemara. He's learning the Rambam's learning the Gemara that way. In Rabbah. Whatever...
No.
He says, it's Shamash Ba'er.
Right.
Yeah, so the reasoning is, for the Gemara, is the Shamash Ba'er, according to the Mag Mishnah. So maybe Rashi took that on also.
Yeah, but what is Rashi talking about?
the hecker
Rashi's
has the same
saying
reason
the
to keep it
tam of tzarech ner acheres. The iloi, if you don't have a ner acheres, loy have a hecker. There's no hecker while you're lighting.
He's not saying it on the distance?
The Gemara doesn't say the distance. Okay, so I want to speak out. It mentions in the Sefer Yachal Mayadim are three nafkaminas, basically between the Rambam and Rashi in the tam of a Shamash. Again, according to the Rambam, it's so that if you come to use it, you'll be using the Shamash. According to Rashi, it's so that it's recognizable you're lighting the L'Shem Mitzvah. Nafkamina number one is the Bir Hagra. And that is, I'm not clear on this completely, but are you allowed then to go to the Ner Chanukah and use them now that you have a Shamash? According to the Rambam, yeah. That's the whole reason you write a Shamash. Now, I'm not sure how it's mavur that you're allowed to go use it l'chadchila, but at least according to the Rambam, let's phrase it in the following way. A nafkamina would be if you, b'di'evet, you went ahead and used the ner, were you doing an avera?
Can I read by the light?
I'm not clear that l'chadchila the Rambam would allow you to go there. It's she'im yishtamish, if you forget and you use it. But let's say b'di'evet, you lost yourself. In other words, you need to clap al chet. On Yom Kippur, if you have a shamash and you forgot and you read la'ar haner.
I wouldn't even know because of just on mathematics when we have an halacha, if you're over something, right? There's a shiur usually. If there's one to, in other words, we have 8 candles, so 1 to 8.
It might depend on how many candles there are.
No, it sounds like from the Rambam that even on the 8th night, if you light a shamash, you're okay. It will save you. It will save you. It will save you. So according to the Rambam, you don't have to do tshuva. But you weren't. Maybe you have to do tshuva for going there, but you didn't do an avera because you didn't use the ner Chanukah. You had the shamash, the safeguard.
And he's not saying it because of Marasayim, because it's us to go for shamash by them. In the 8th night, you have the thing there,
right?
So people
right.
assume that you're using what's called.
Right. But Lafi Rashi, the Gra says we have no proof that lighting a shamash saves you from the isur of a shamash ba'ira. Now, the truth is Rashi holds it's mutter l'shtamish l'oira. That's why, in other words, why the Pri Chadash happens to be medayek. Why does Rashi say the reason of hecker, and Rashi doesn't say to save you? Because Rashi Taka holds mutter l'shtamish l'oira. Rashi argues on the Rambam, lahalacha. But we paskin aser. So once we paskin aser, I'm speaking out of nafkamina in the world that aser l'shtamish l'oira. That Lufi the Rambam, the added candle will save you, and according to Rashi, we have no proof that it does. It could be if Rashi would walk in, Rashi would say, I also agree it saves you, but that's not the reason for the shamash. The reason for the shamash is a hecker.
Or you can say it doesn't save you, but it's irrelevant because you don't need to be saved.
Yeah, that's Rashi's shitase. Rashi. I'm just pointing out nafkamina, okay?
Yeah, once you have the merit, it should make sense. It's mistaber to the Rambam that it saves you.
But the Rambam has a proof that it saves you from the Gemara, because according to the Rambam, why does the Gemara say? According to Rashi, you have no proof. Right. But I'm saying according to Rashi, there's no proof that an added candle saves you.
Because there's the candle.
What?
You didn't do anything wrong because you have the other candle.
Yeah, but you also...
behind the Rambam is because now you have another candle.
I understand. But why should Rashi argue? But I am being nana from the other candles also, right?
What is the Isser Stamshus?
So that's they pattern...
Hana?
Yeah.
But you can get Hana from the other light too. And maybe that's why you need it to be far away, so it's...
You're not allowed to use it. I mean, you're allowed to look at it. You're allowed to look at it. You're not allowed to use it.
But at the end of the day, right, what's the difference if there's another candle there or not? If I'm reading a book there, all the light illuminates.
All the light...
I'm having Hana from the Chanukah.
Do you want to know how does the Shamash save you?
Because how does the Shamash save you if it's an Isser Hana? No.
It sounds like it's not a math thing.
Because if it's an Isser Hana, it's different how much Hana you're getting.
Again,
it's
a din d'Rabbanan. It could be it's a din d'Rabbanan. Hey mamru v'hei mamru. It's not. You're not mamish moel b'hektish. It's not hektish.
I mean,
they pattern it. Yes.
It would also make a difference if the Shamash went out.
What do you do then?
No, because the hecker from the lighting. Rashi,
do you have to light it again?
Yeah,
that's the question. That's
right. But even in the Rambam, do you have to? Maybe you have to light it again.
According to the Rambam, it would make more that you need to light it again.
According to Rashi.
Rashi, you lit. There was a hecker.
But it has to burn for a half hour.
For a half hour.
Okay, so I'm going to come to that. Okay, I'm going to say. Okay, I'll go to that in Afkamina. Let's say like this. We know that the candles have to burn for at least 30 minutes. after 30 minutes, are you allowed to take the shamash away? And whatever. Am I allowed to take the shamash away after 30 minutes? So, in the world of the Rambam, the reason I need a shamash, so I'm not mishtamish la'ira, are you allowed to be mishtamish la'ira after 30 minutes? So that's a big machlokes. The Mechaber says yes. Mechaber says after the candles burn for 30 minutes, the mitzvah's over, and you could get hana from them.
There's no fish in there. I can blow them out.
Yeah. What could I be? Even more. I'm not blowing them out. So, if blowing them out is a halbatzara, right? It's lighting. So while it's lighting, the Mechaber says I could be nena after 30 minutes. Tafrei shayin beis of beis. Mutar l'sham sharon la'achar shadagu chatzi shir. Chatzi shah. However, the Mishnah Berurah brings down achroinim that you're not, as long as they're going, it's also l'shtamish la'ira. So can
putting them out and then relighting them.
What?
You'd be better off putting them out and then relighting them, not else. Shame,
Yeah.
Because if you're leaving to go to a party or something and you're afraid for the fire, that you put them out.
Yeah.
In that case, where you need them to read or something, in the case there's no electric, you'd be better off blowing them out.
Yeah.
And relighting them.
Correct. So could I blow it?
You could explain that, just to understand. So it has a din that these neighbors are no more. It's not something that goes on for this. Like let's say saying it's like an hektish. Hektish doesn't disappear. You can be.
It's only hukdash l'mitzvah. So once the mitzvah is performed.
So it doesn't have a din of something that.
The achroinim say no.
So my point is, I don't know. I've learned this, but I don't know how it's done. Is that the leftover oil that you have?
Right? Yeah, right.
Could you use the leftover oil to cook with, or whatever you might want to do after? I don't know if it's so clear.
Moisar Hashemen.
Moisar Hashemen.
Moisar Hashemen. So.
So you should have in mind beforehand.
Moisar Hashemen. It's a question whether you're allowed to use it lechulan. But this is another machlokes. This machlokes is after a half hour, am I allowed to be mishtamish la'ira? Okay. Hilkoch tzarich lidu mashal bim nasam yoyser yachal lechabois achshav zazman v'chin yachal shtam shal achar zazman.
Isn't it going like dvar?
V'yesh machmirin shabois knows in l'shtam shal mishum harayis shalay yeda. It's okay.
But not else that you can't be that.
No, it's out.
Else Marasayan.
Mm-hmm. But there's machlokes achronim again after 30 minutes. Am I allowed to be mishamish la'ira? So can I move the shamish after 30 minutes?
Would
So
it be different like dvar mitzvah?
1 second.
Is not in use. You can use the walls, right?
Yeah.
The same here.
Yeah, 1 second.
minutes,
1
it's
second.
not dvar mitzvah anymore.
A pair of tzitzis, when you're done with it, you could make it and you could throw in the garbage. It's only
Can you make some garment for yourself?
what? You can do whatever you want with that.
You asked if I can move the shamish. Why can't I move the shamish right away?
So the Elia Rabbah says you're not allowed to move the shamish. Once you light it, okay, it's very part. Why? Because according to the Rambam, he might come to use the neiros. So
No, you can move it. I mean, no.
no, he means to move it to another room. Okay, okay. Again, the achronim paskin that once that you should not move the shamish after. Let's get to that. That the achronim paskin that you should not move the shamish after. I know, and the achronim say that you should not move the shamish after you light it. Yeah. So the question is, what about after 30 minutes? So in the Rambam's world, it depends if you hold asur l'shtamish la'ira after 30 minutes or not. If you hold mutar l'shtamish la'ira after 30 minutes, then I could move the shamish because I'm allowed to be mishtamish la'ira. If you hold like the achronim that the Mishnah Berurah brings down that you're not allowed to be mishtamish la'ira after 30 minutes, you can't move the shamish. What about in the world of Rashi? Rashi says the only reason to have a shamish is that it's nicker for the persuma nisa why you lit it. But that's l'chayra only kolzman that it's lighting l'tzarich mitzvah. But after the half hour, it's not needed anymore, so you can move the shamish. Unless you say, Rabbi Yerucham argues, maybe you could say that even so, it's still an inyan to let it go longer because it's magdil the mitzvah. There's more persuma nisa if you let it burn for more than a half hour. So then maybe you should keep the shamish. But that you could say keeping the shamish there is not me'ikar hadin. It's only maybe a slight hither. Fine. So that would be an afkamina. If you hold mutar l'shtamish la'ira after 30 minutes, then in the world of the Rambam, you're allowed to move the shamish. If you hold also shamish la'ira, you're not allowed to move the shamish. And the world of Rashi, you l'chayra could move the shamish after 30 minutes.
Take a step further in the Rambam. If you hold that it's usher after 30 minutes and the shamash goes out, you need to relight the shamash. Or even
Yeah, but we don't know that.
No,
even
Al
within 30
Shulchan
minutes,
sure.
after 30 minutes, within 30 minutes.
Right, according to the Rambam, I'll ask you, according to the Rambam, do you have to, even or Rambam or Rashi, if the Shamash goes out within 30 minutes, do you have to relight it? Even the Ner Chanukah itself, if it goes out,
Than the Shamash.
why?
I understand what the Rabbi is saying, but the Ner Chanukah, once there's enough oil to last after 30 minutes, you're good. But the Shamash is not also a mitzvah, it's also a precaution, it's also a hector, it's also whatever else it is. That
Yeah, but
may
it
not
could
be
be
good
you
enough.
could say they never made the Shamash more chamor than the Ner itself. We don't. In other words,
I could see this far that it is.
you could say that, but I don't know if we don't have a right chamor matriach someone if it went out to relight it.
I'm asking you.
Okay, fine. One last nafkamina, very nice nafkamina. So nowadays you have people that are called. There's a certain phenomenon. People are spaced out. Spaced out is like they're like no awareness of what's going on. They're like lapses of attention. So here, what?
I'll space that right.
What? So
So you're saying everybody's Al Shulchan today.
So no, like this. No, here's the case. The guy hadlik ner shel Chanukah she'asa nisafai, he makes the bracha, and he forgets and he lights the shamash first, and then he shah kedei dibur, and then he wants to light the other neros Chanukah. Was lighting the shamash a hefsek between the bracha and the neros which are me'ikar hadin? Lefi the Rambam. So this is the shaila in Shaus Utshuvos, Sedei Ha'aretz Chelak Gimel Tshuva Lamed Ches. So he says that in Svara, since the reason to light a shamash is to take care of some zaitige chshash, that a person might come to use the neiros, and this way if he comes to use it, he'll be nana from the shamash, there's nothing to do with the Iker Mitzvah. He would think it's a hefsek. But then he concludes he's miyarei hapsak, he's afraid to paskin, so he's not going to say make a bracha again, but you should light without a bracha.
But you are lighting the bracha.
Meaning, he says basically he's afraid. He feels that you should make a bracha, but he's afraid to say it.
So after you light the shamash, wait, then have new kavanas and do it without.
Here he says like this. He says, "Bekitzer ki haner hazeh noisef einoi meyikar neres hamitzvah shel Chanukah elo ner noisef ube'erich neres hamitzvah havelei ner zeh k'ner chol mamish." The ner is a ner chol. It is a ner chol. You have to put it far away so that it's nicker. It's a ner chol. So it's a hefsek. The haloyim yesh le ner al shulchanoi ein tzarach v'nimtzad ein lo shaychos. Now he says like this: Lamaisa.
What's a hefsek? What's a hefsek? Is it a time thing or is it an action?
From the bracha to the
Let's
action.
say the time.
Sure, the time. How long does it take you to light a shamash?
No. You're not to be mafsa kedei dibur.
So is it today? Is it
No, he lit the shamash and he waited kedei dibur.
Oh.
Hold on, so then should light the shamash? Don't we people use the shamash to light the candles. They light the shamash first, then they make the bracha, and then they light the candles. So
They light the shamash first?
No, probably talking about
they use
oil.
the shamash.
But shamash is not oil. Let's say
That's fine, but you can't make the bracha and then light the shamash. Wait, and then light the other candles.
If, in the case where you have an oil situation, if you're using the candle as the shamash,
I don't light the shamash first.
So what do you light your candles with?
Take a match. I light the candle.
that's not the
Which
shamash.
is not your
that candle.
shamash?
Lav dafka. No, it's not.
Right, it's another candle. Then you light
Because
the-
I light
light the
oil.
bit-
I light oil.
Right.
Right.
So I
But
light
the shamash is oil also.
the shamash
and
is
the
oil.
So I leave
Oil should last.
I leave the shamash as a candle, just so it could be nicker.
Okay.
And the shamash should be last. And
So one second. He says like this. He says,
that's why the shamash has to be last.
he says,
Oh, you're a saver.
So I didn't even know what I was doing.
How important was it?
he says, "V'chein roi lahiris halach l'maisa, ela de b'say mazbal zeot, shehu miyarei hayra." He ends that he's afraid to paskin, and therefore halach l'maisa, he says, don't make another bracha, because maybe it's not a hefsek. Fine. But be'ikar hadin, he holds it's a hefsek. But Rabbi Yerucham Moshe argues that in the world of Rashi, that the reason that you're lighting is so that it's nicker that the other candles are for Pesumei Nisa. Then l'chayra, it's not a hefsek. It's like somebody who says, go get the salt, before he eats the hamaitzi. It's mitzorech hahadlaka. It's mitzorech hahadlaka. And l'chayra, then it would not be a hefsek.
So The Rashi says that Rashi means Nikka means al pursuing Nisa.
Chayra, no? I'm not sure if he says it beferish or I injected that. I'm not sure.
He wants to tie Rashi into the Rambam.
Now, Lemaisa, you should know, the Pnei Yeshua, maybe, there's another way to read Rashi. This I wasn't going to get into. And that is Rashi agrees to the Rambam. That the reason for Shamash is Kadei Shalei also, so it's not, so that if you come to use it, it's not going to be from the candle, it's going to be from the Shamash. So why does Rashi say, the Eloi have a hecker? Rashi doesn't say that. Because there's another Machlokes. Why is it also a Shamash L'Oira? I told you the reason of the Ran. That what? That it has a din of Me'ila. Rashi on the top of the page says, also a Shamash L'Oira, Kedei Sheyehei Nicker. If you're going to use the R, it's not going to be Nicker that you lit it. For Chanukah, people are going to think you lit it for your own use. So the reason why Rashi says, the Eloi have a hecker, is because Rashi's saying the tam of also a Shamash L'Oira. Meaning Rashi says, Sarach Neracheres. Why? Why do you need a neracheres? Because otherwise, the reason why it's also l'shtamish l'oira is there's no hecker. So Rashi's not giving a different reason than the Rambam. They both agree that the shamish is kedei l'shtamish l'oira, but Rashi's injecting his reason into why it's also l'shtamish l'oira. But the Pri Chadash feels that since Rashi did that already, Rashi already told us his reason for also l'shtamish l'oira, then it would not be necessary for Rashi to do that again unless he holds there's a different reason why you need the shamish.
But the first Rashi then it shows that he holds that it's also to do with shamish.
No, Rashi's in that man the Omar over there. There's a Machlokes in the Gemara. Okay, Rabbi say thank you.
What do we come out from this?
Bottom line is, these are only nafkaminas in Lomdus. Right. The Shulchan Aruch says it's also a shamish l'oira for the Rambam's reason. So bottom line, in all these nafkaminas, let's just think.
If it goes out within a half hour?
If it goes out within a half hour, not if it goes out, are you allowed to move it within the half hour? After the half hour?
Both.
Within the half hour, you're not allowed to move it, according to anybody.
And if it goes out, you have to relight it.
You never have to, I'm not aware that you ever have to relight the shamish.
After a half hour, would it be any?
Are you allowed to move the shamish after a half hour? Again, we're machmir not to be mishtamish after a half hour, so you shouldn't move the shamish after a half hour. So yeah, I know very chashuv people that don't light a shamish. My person who one of my poskim doesn't light a shamish. And the Mechaber says, if you have madura, right, the whole thing is, if there's madura, you don't need it. So we have the lights on.
But if you learn the Gemara, that was talking about al shulchanei dafka. But then the second part of the stira in the Mechaber, right? Maybe he's saying there. The
noyagin is going in.
So yesh noyagin is talking about in general. Even if there is a madur, even if you're adam chashiv, even if you're not on your table.
No, but I have a shamish. I have the light.
So you're saying the light is a shamish?
Chayra. I mean, I light it. That's the minhag because my father did it.
See, I have 8 different.
That's that kind of minhag.
I have 8 different color lights in my room.
Yeah.
I have a thing that I can make 8 different colors in my room. So each night,
You do a different color every night?
And if I add each color is another night.
What do you mean in your room?
No, I'm saying the lights. Let's say the lights. Is that am I yotza lighting what's called? Are you
yotza lighting the menorah by turning on the light in your house?
Yeah, the same way halachas neris if you light what's called.
Well, one of the reasons it's supposed to be.
Did we discuss this? Shabbos lighting and turning on the light. Did you have it? Am I yotza?
B'di Eved, according to many, you're yotze, but not according to Moshe.
So it could be.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.